Hey, my name is Martin Gonzalez, the community manager for Niantic Scaniverse, and we're here today to talk about a little bit about Scaniverse, splatting techniques, and of course, introducing you all to the community forum, where you can go to share successes, ask questions, ask for support, amongst many other things. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right on in. So here is a little bit about our history. Originally, we started with Keyhole that eventually turned into Google Earth, where you're able to explore different places around the globe, all from the convenience of your home and your internet connection. Eventually, that transitioned into Wayfair. So many of you may have been on the Wayfair app to VPS locate to submit different locations. But that only allows us to create a two-dimensional map of the world. And so with Scaniverse, that allows us to create a three-dimensional map of the world by creating scans and Gaussian splats. I will be using splats and scans interchangeably, but please know that our tips and tricks apply to both of them equally, and we will be able to practice both to make sure that you're producing some really high quality scans and splats to use in your products. So let's go ahead and get started. So some quick tips, just make sure that when you're going out to scan or splat, you're checking your weather. As you can see in this example here of the sign that I took in Monterey, California, you can see it's very sunny. It's a very clear sky. It gives a lot of light. So it's really, really conducive to producing some high quality splats and scans. I've also found that when it's a little bit overcast, not too heavily, it scatters light pretty well, and also helps with producing some really awesome splats and scans that allow your device to capture all of the details. So with that, as I mentioned, your device being able to capture all those details, you want to make sure that your device is LiDAR capable or has a LiDAR equipment in it so that you're capturing a lot of that detail, producing that Gaussian splat, and then able to use it in your projects. As many of you know, with Niantic products, they are very battery heavy, power heavy. So you want to have a portable battery case or pack in case your device does start running a little bit lower, especially in the situations where you have a lot of splats or scans to produce. And you're having to do that over and over as you're fine tuning your practice. So make sure you always have one on in your backpack, in your pocket, or in your car. And then lastly, for your own safety, making sure that you're also planning your scan route. As you can see here, there's a lot of bushes, there's some rocks in the landscaping, and in the far back, you can definitely see that there's a very busy street. So in your mind, you want to track the trajectory that you'll take while you're splatting or scanning to make sure that you don't have to move your device, remove the focal point from the center of what you're scanning, and you're also not putting yourself in any danger. Definitely want to make sure that we are practicing safe scanning and splatting at all times. Um, so using this example here, I want to highlight some of the techniques that us internally use for our team. The first one being we're walking in a slow, natural pace, right? So we're not taking large strides. We're not speed walking through it. We're walking fairly slowly, making sure that we're keeping the focal point of our scan in the center of our screen. By doing so, we're allowing it to capture a lot more detail, a lot more of the texture of what it is that you're trying to splat. In this bronze statue, we're able to do that by slowly moving around and making sure that our phone is always perpendicular to the item that we're trying to scan. And so that's going to be very crucial. If you accidentally, have it out of focus, your device will try to focus on the next nearest thing or the next logical thing that it's going to try to focus on. So it's at that point capturing detail from something that you may not want, but also stealing away some of that detail and attention from what you're trying to scan. So make sure that you're always having the focal point be at the center of your device. When it comes to distance from the object, it's going to vary based off what you're trying to scan. I'll go over some of the techniques a little bit later on for scanning murals, for scanning statues, smaller objects, But definitely wanting to make sure that on average, you're no more than 35 feet from larger objects. So 10 meters, 35 feet is roughly the farthest you want to be from that item or object that you're trying to splat or scan. Of course, keep in mind, being too close is definitely something that you want to keep in mind, especially as you're trying to render a video. Of your item, a thumbnail for your splat. So keep in mind, let's play around with distance to see what produces the best quality or the best visual for what you're aiming to do. Every minute, every time you're recording, you want to capture something different, right? So this comes along with the walking slowly around that object to make sure that you're capturing something different every single time. We've also noticed that whatever you want your video to start or stop, have that be the very first thing and the last thing that you scan to produce that splat. So for example, this one here, I would want the front of the Gandhi statue to be that first thing that you see and also the last thing that you see. So to produce that nice high quality scan, I'm going to go a little bit over it, making sure that it captures it twice, so that it's ending at a natural point as we're trying to produce this rendering GIF that's going to continue to move. So it'll always start at that point. And then lastly, similar to keeping your object of focus in the focus at all times, we found that the thing we keep in mind when walking around that object is walking like a crab. So we're walking again, always horizontal to what our object is. We're never, moving past it and then whatever you're scanning is moving to the side. You are the one that's rotating your body around it horizontally at all times. I hope that makes sense. It's a little difficult to capture. I wish we would have had a video of it. But again, making sure that your body is always facing that object in the center and not moving your body so that it tilts off to the side. So these are just some quick tricks that we practice to make sure that we're producing some really good scans. And the next slide, we'll talk about some of that movement and some of those patterns to make sure that that scan and the splat is capturing all of the detail. So with smaller objects, something that's easy to move around and isn't blocked by a wall, a garden fence, anything like that, you can use one of two circular movements. So the first one, the circular movement, is you're going around that object at different distance intervals. So the very first one can be 5 feet, and you're going again just in around a 5 foot radius from that object. Then you're taking a few steps back, maybe at 10 feet, and then doing another one at 15 feet. And you're just capturing that data at that same distance at every rotation. The next one is spiral. So this is a combination of that in and out, but you're giving it a circular motion. So you're starting very close to your object, and as you start to rotate it around it, you're taking a step back at the start point so that it ends up being a spiral. This is really helpful. Both of these things are very helpful for capturing different lightings, different angles, the texture of it as well. However, I found that the flower movement is probably better in my experience at capturing some of that really nice fine detail. So the flower movement and the star movement are really good for also larger objects. So when I'm producing a splat, you'll see in a few slides, I scanned some whales, a whale statue or two whale statues. And I was able to kind of zoom in on that nice, rich texture and then zoom out so that the splat is indicative of the size of the statue. So this really helps with that. But again, you're always holding your phone horizontal to that object. You're always keeping it center. These movements around are really meant to capture more detail of what you're trying to splat or scan. On flat surfaces, whether it's a mural, whether it's the wall of a building with some really nice architecture. Depending on what you want your focal point to be, you can practice one of these two. So the half circular or the half flower movement. Um, the half flower movement I found is really good for. I was creating a Gaussian splat of a mural, but there was a really nice focal point to that mural, and I wanted that to be the center, right? So I started off at the center, moved back and then out to capture some of the detail on the peripherals. But then always at every time I was coming back, I was going back to the same point so that at the end, it was producing the super detailed part of that splat in the center. And then the things off to the side were very pretty and really nice to look at. But I wanted the eye of the audience or whoever's going to look at my splat to know that this is what I want you to see. And therefore it's going to have the most detail. Of course, with larger murals with a lot of focal points, it's going to be very difficult to do that flower movement on all of those parts, especially it's going to prolong the time you want. And longer scans or videos aren't necessarily better for producing really high quality. And so with those, you're making that circular movement back and forth. And every time you reach that wall, you're taking a few steps back and then going back around. And again, taking scans in that circular movement with your phone always pointing at a focal point. In this case, because it's a mural, there might be several. And you're getting it at different intervals of that radius. Um, uh, so again, some more, objects, flat objects. Let's say it's a wall, but it's more of an artistic wall or a sculpture. You can capture this type of movement as well. So not only can you get to the front of it, but now you can get to the backside of that as well. So you can practice this technique on both ends. It's going to be more of a circular, but it's an elongated circular movement. And because the ends of it are narrower, you don't have to be as far from those narrower sides of that flat surface or that wall that allows you to go onto the other side fully. With corners, very easy circular movements as well. This was very easy or better to produce some really nice scans for murals that extend onto multiple faces of that wall. If you've ever been to San Francisco, going to the Mission District, you know that a lot of those murals extend around to multiple faces of the buildings. And so these are the types of um, patterns that we do based off of the location type. Smaller objects, circular movement works wonders, especially for getting a full kind of top down, side to side capturing of that object. And then with buildings, right, you're going in and out. When you're trying to capture the face of a whole building. I know it can be difficult for reaching really high places. So again, getting your phone and your device to capture the true nature of the height and the size of the building really comes in useful as you're going in and out. And so really practicing that star movement on those larger buildings. But things to avoid. So you want to make sure that you are aware of your finger. And I've definitely fallen a victim to this when I'm holding my phone and all of a sudden it tilts a little bit, and then my finger is now at the bottom of that splat or that scan. But also, I have scanned at very busy locations, and so by going in these movements circular, you're able to kind of signal to people like, oh, they look like they're taking a video or something. I should probably go around them. So making sure that your body language, that your behavior is, communicative to people as well, so that you're not capturing their faces in your splats and in your scans. You definitely want to protect the privacy of individuals, and also the the product that you're finally producing. Of course, having fingerprints, your finger showing up at the bottom of the screen isn't something that you want to capture. Um, lastly, or not lastly, but next, scanning while you're also being cautious of your surroundings. So, as I mentioned in the very first one with the sign of Monterey, you're able to make sure that you're tracking your route, right? Making sure that you're never putting yourself or others in danger, whether it's from a busy street, people on scooters. You're being cautious and communicating with those around you to make sure that you're not bumping into them, they're not bumping into you, so on and so forth. Um, lastly, as I mentioned, the distance, right? You're not super far, you're not super close, making sure you're maybe trying it once or twice with what type of distance you want to produce your splatter scan in. We definitely want to be cautious to that so that when you're rendering it, when you're using it, you're not needing to zoom in or out during that time. Moving too fast, and then very similar to my last point. Um, Also, be cautious of reflective or really bright surfaces. You're going to capture some really funky, artistic, and kind of cute little objects all around your scan, your splat. It can have a really interesting result, but if that's not what you're looking for, definitely make sure you're not pointing your phone directly at the sun, directly in the reflection pathway of the sun to a mirror, to a window. It's not going to look as pretty. It's not going to reflect like that in real life. On your scan or splat. So just being cautious. That's why I really love it when it's overcast, it scatters the light. Those reflective surfaces aren't bouncing light at the strength of the sun back into my device and messing with my final product. Lastly, making sure that we're not uploading scans to the map that are incomplete, that aren't high quality. Um, Really, this is more so for all of us to make sure that whatever we're looking for when we're navigating the map or exploring the map, it's something lovely. It's something that's really high quality. But even for yourselves, right? Don't waste your time uploading scans. It might take a little bit longer, but you definitely want to produce a nice quality splat or scan to use. So make sure you just dispose of it, start over, or start a new one. I know it can take a little bit longer, but in the end, you're going to be more proud of that success. And then others will be like, wow, this is a really great scan. Who did it? Right. So making sure that you put out some really good quality scans and splats. Um, and lastly, I mentioned earlier just weather. Make sure you're not putting, again, yourself in danger. If there's a hurricane, if there's rain, if there's snow, so on and so forth. But yeah, that should be about it for the tips and tricks. And then lastly, making sure you all are aware of the Scaniverse Community Forum. So we launched this along with Scaniverse. It is a place for all people who are interested in splatting, Gaussian splats, scans, and this type of technology to come in, have conversations, connect with people, build community. We have support on the forum from Sunday to Friday. Sorry, Saturday is no longer available. But if you do, it's always open. We might just take a little bit longer to respond. Um, and then we're on there from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. PST. So if you are in a different time zone, just notice that it'll be a little bit different, or keep in mind that's going to be a little bit different hours, but just adjust to your time zone. And then if we miss us or if we miss you, we'll definitely pick it up at the next business day. Um, Here, you'll be able to meet folks who are currently doing a lot of really awesome projects. There's some in here with folks scanning a bunch of sculptures in Japan, some really awesome caves and crystal formations on their journeys from hiking. But overall, this is a space dedicated for all of you. And it's a place where we get to connect with you. You can, share any type of feature requests, bug reports, or just come and check out what people are doing. So that is there for you. It is at www.community.scaniverse.com. And when you have your Scaniverse account, you'll be able to log right on in. But that is it for me, folks. Thank you all so much, and hope you have a great day. Thanks, everybody. Bye bye.